Hey, how you doing?
Hey, brother, how you doing, man?
All is well, all is well. Thank you
Good.
so much. I really appreciate you taking out the time to stop by on the platform. This is definitely an honor.
Oh man, the honor is mine. It's my pleasure, I assure you. We we
Definitely.
we know we know a couple of the same people that have
Oh,
been,
wow.
yeah, Tommy Davidson. We go back. Oh my God, too long. And Trey, of course, same thing. Yeah.
hmm Yeah, some
And where you
amazing brothers. Say that
lo-
again.
where are you located?
I'm currently in Nashville. I've been in Africa the last 2 years. My mom, she turned 70, so I came back to check her out for her birthday. So,
Nice,
mhm.
nice.
Where you at?
L.A. L.A. I'm a
Oh,
New
okay.
York boy, born and raised, but I live in L.A.
You from New York?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay, okay. That's
Traveled to
cool.
Harlem. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. Big shout out to Harlem. That's definitely where some of our biggest and brightest and most creative people come from in the world.
That's right. That's right. Where in Africa were you from? Where were you?
Um, well, I've been to about 20 African countries. I was in Ghana for a year. I was in Madagascar for 6 months. So I just been
Ah,
bouncing around.
that's amazing, man. What a beautiful experience.
Yeah, it is, man. So many people missing out because some of those countries are real peaceful, low crime rate, low violent crime, low gun violence.
Ghana is supposed to be amazing.
You said Ghana?
Yes.
Yeah, Ghana is cool. That's definitely like a hot spot now for the people that's coming back. It's a good place to start, but it's so diverse. You got a lot of options. There's places that's totally different, but just as amazing.
Wow. I've been to Nigeria, uh,
Okay.
and that was a trip. So
I've never been to Nigeria. I've heard good and bad, but
yeah, I know.
how was it?
It was crazy. It was crazy.
Oh, okay. Because it's so many people there. There's like the giant of Africa, so it's kind of fast. Like it's like probably the New York of Africa. They move
Yeah,
so fast. You know.
brothers be hustling. That's all
Right.
I can say.
They'll get you. That's all good. Now I can ask you this. Now coming from, NY, now when did you first get exposed to hip hop? Was it already out in the community at that time, or did you kind of catch,
Well,
on the radio?
I came out of a music background, so it was starting to emerge after as I was getting out of college, and I was writing and producing. So I had done a number of things like Tana Gardner and a lot of dance stuff and funk and back in the day, and I segued into directing, and actually Kwame was the first clip I directed, and uh, and that kind of blew up. Salt and Pepper was up in it, and Kid Play, and I did Roxanne Shante directing her music video, and on and on. And so I go back a little bit. It was definitely on the scene, but Andre Harrell used to tease me, say I'm a jazz cat caught in the hip hop world.
Wow, wow. You didn't mention some giants, man. Andre Harrell, big shout out. Now, what was it like working with him or even knowing him, because he's been behind so many great artists and
He
great things.
really has, and one thing about Dre, he was always such a gentleman, man. I was always impressed, and I did a lot of work uh, directing some of his artists. Jeff Red, I did quite a few videos of his, and then years later, Andre was the executive producer on Honey, which I co-wrote with my boy Alonzo Brown, who used to be in Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde with Dre. So there's a whole lot going on up in there.
Okay, okay. I appreciate you sharing that. Now, when did you kind of, develop this passion for music? Because I know hip hop kind of was a new thing back then. Was you into music before that, or your
Yeah,
family, or?
yeah.
Mhm.
I come from a family of artists and musicians, and so I actually left college after my junior year to study jazz in Manhattan. I was a flautist and a vocalist and percussionist in high school and college as well. So I was out there in the world gigging around New York and producing and playing on some on some sides that, you know, I don't even know if you were born yet, but it was it was a journey, man. And I love music, but I had some amazing friends and colleagues who would go on to win Grammys. And I looked in the mirror one day and I said, "Are you going to win a Grammy?" And I just wasn't as bad as them. And fortunately, I found my lane, which was film and writing. I'd always been a writer and always been a photographer, and then started directing. So that's where I belonged. That's where I belonged.
Wow. Okay. Okay. That's cool. You had mentioned Kwame, and I checked out the video. Like you say, it was so many like a kid play. I think I seen Dana Dane, Malcolm
For
Jamal
real.
Warner. How did you connect with him to do that video? And did you come up with the idea, or he came up with it, and you put it together for him?
Yeah, and he's amazing, and went on to be a huge producer as well, as you know. Um, Ted Demme, Jonathan Demme, Academy Award winning director, his nephew Ted Demme was behind Yo MTV Raps and a whole bunch of stuff. And I was his AD, assistant director. And I was working with Fab and a bunch of cats, assistant directing. And then this came up, the video for Atlantic Records for Kwame. And Ted was off to Japan. And he said, "Hey, give it to Kim, give him a shot." And they gave me a shot, and it blew up. And I was very fortunate. And it led to about 30 other videos that I did before segueing out of music videos and more towards writing and directing other stuff.
Okay, okay, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, that's definitely a dope video to see all those icons on there. You had mentioned Yo MTV Raps and Fab Five. What was it like connecting with him? You know, he definitely a legend. What about now? Did you know? Did you ever meet Basquiat? Because I know they were supposed to
You
be
know
cool.
what? I did not, but that was his boy.
Yeah,
A couple of my friends were close with him, but Fab was cool, man. We're still friends. We're still tight. And I had an exhibit in Harlem a couple months back, and he was up in there. And my cousin actually sold him his brownstone in Harlem. So, so we remained connected, and iconic, super intelligent brother, super creative, as you know. And it was so exciting. That moment in time when music videos and hip hop were just coming up together and, and starting to explode. And for us, there was Video Music Box and BET. That was who was playing black music videos. And it was Lionel Martin, and he had a partner whose name escapes me. But that was just great time, man. It's a lot of energy. Black women like, oh man, Roxanne Shante and Queen Latifah, of course, MC Light. Everybody was busting out, and it was a beautiful time. And you just see where it went from there.
yeah, yeah, definitely. The golden age or the golden era of hip hop for sure. But I guess it had several golden eras, but that's
Yeah,
definitely.
it keeps on going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, that's cool. Now you had mentioned Roxanne Shante earlier. Now, did you say you worked with her or?
I directed it live on stage, and
Mm,
uh, and oh man, there's some icons up in there too, and so that was, yeah, that was a real dance kind of vibe. And kind of, at that point in my career, I'd liked, as with Kwame, to do things that had a lot of humor in them. So I did that, and then started to do more of the R&B thing. I didn't want to get stuck doing rap, so I ended up doing the R&B thing, and was blessed to work with Al Jarreau and Will Downing and Jeff Redd, and cats like that. So that was a real honor.
yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. Now like you say, you going into R&B. Now I was checking out your profile on IMDb. It said you had produced a couple videos for R. Kelly. How did you connect with him?
I directed those. Yeah, the way it works is they had commissioners at each label, and they would, see your work, and we had reps at the production companies where the various of us worked, and they'd make contact, and the reps always trying to get you work. It's like an agent, and they knew about me over at Island Records at the time, and got an opportunity to go to Chicago, shoot Bump and Grind and Sex Me, uh, and should have known something was up with those titles. So, well, that was beautiful, man, and quite an experience. I love Chicago. Chicago's a great city, a lot of culture, a lot of good people.
Yeah, definitely. I love the shot. Now I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, so that's I guess that's like our version of New York for the Midwest. It's definitely a lot of culture and creativity in Chicago. Now I can ask you this because a lot of people would say that R. Kelly is probably like the greatest R&B of his era, and out of that they would say 12 Play is like the top of that, and you
Uh,
was a part of that. What was it like working with him during that era? He was like he was you know,
well, he was Robert.
he was
Uh,
uncut.
he was Robert, and but it was great, man. It was, you're right. That was at the top of the charts. He was really killing it at the time. So that was a big, big thrill, and to be able to go there with my producers, my team, and really do something that was nominated for MTV Award, a Soul Train Award. Uh, Bump and Grind did really, really well, and so that helped propel me a little further and a little higher, and you just take it as far as you can, and then at some point it was time to shift gears.
Yeah, yeah, that's dope, man. That's amazing. You a part of world history. Those videos is very important because it could, like you say, it could take a song to the next level. So if somebody else had did that video, it might have not gotten that push that it had needed. You was a part of
Yeah,
that.
it was
So
nice, man. The whole production was very exciting, except it was the first time I cut my hair off, and I didn't have my hookup yet. I had to go rush out because my head was very cold in the Chicago winter.
yeah, yeah, get cold in the shy. Now let me see. I think I covered the music videos for that time. Did you work with anybody else that I might have missed?
Oh, yeah, quite a few. One of the real fun ones. Al Jarreau was working with an icon. Uh, Will Downing was working, who's still performing all over the place, was working with a dear friend. And Jeff Red and I went to Jamaica to do Love High and Strictly Business. And that's where Tommy and Hallie and I all met back in the day, doing the Strictly Business soundtrack, which was on Uptown, I believe. I believe that was Uptown's joint with Andre. So, it's there's so many and so many wonderful people. It's amazing to watch how that genre has grown. R&B's changed so much, you know, but I'm really excited. I go back to Teddy Riley and doing the New Jack thing, and music is ever evolving, man, and so are the arts, and visually and musically, and so many ways. We're out there doing our thing, and a lot of the young, we were all young then, but Millicent Shelton, Kevin Bray, uh, on, have gone on to do really big things in TV. And if you look at the credits, you'll see their credits up there on episodes of different television programs. So that's really exciting to see how everyone's come up and is succeeding.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. And I feel like with R&B as well, that was a like a golden era, like you say, all those people you was mentioning. Even the movies, because it was like the soundtracks was
Yeah.
just as good as an album back then. Like you say, Strictly Business, People like Tommy Davis, and I had Anne Marie Johnson on the show.
Oh, I saw that. I saw that.
Yeah.
I remember the Soul Food soundtrack when that came out.
Hmm.
Oh my God, that was bonkers, man. That was like Soul Food broke down so many doors in cinema for us, but also in the soundtrack world. That was such a strong soundtrack. It was just number one, and things were opening up for Black folk at that point.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Now I can ask you this by you being into the music, and I mean, hip hop and R&B. I guess what hip hop like this is it still hip hop? Like if you say maybe gangster rap, trap, snap, crunk,
Man,
drill.
listen. I can't keep up with you youngsters, but every time I look around, there's a new thing going on. But coming out of Queens, I grew up in Queens, and my family's from Harlem. And after college, I lived in Brooklyn. So we were, there was all these influences. It was Run DMC, and Queens had a lot of real bands, a lot of great jazz musicians and R&B musicians came out of Queens, and so it wasn't surprising that Run DMC and hip hop had a strong hold there. And of course, there was the Bronx thing and the Harlem thing and the Brooklyn, throwing it down. But it's really it's been a journey, and it's ever changing. The one thing that remains with hip hop, and that is the story. Uh, the idea of using words, using lyrics. Beats are beats, not everybody could throw a beat together. That's not true. But you can get some great beats, but if the words are whack, if the lyric is not on point, there's a problem. And hip hop has been used to tell so many powerful stories, silly stories too, fun stories, party stories, but to tell some very serious stories as well when you have the Tupacs coming out and Most Def, of course, with his new name, but you have these cats and these women just really expressing themselves like poets. They are poets, and because this comes out of our history of telling stories orally, and it's a beautiful thing that goes back to Oscar Brown Jr. and others in the jazz tradition. So it's wonderful to see how it continues to grow.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Because it seems like, I mean, I guess so. Even if you go as far back as the '90s, like okay, and even with R&B, like if you listen to music today, if it go from one artist to the next artist, it sounded like the same tempo, the same subject matter, the same beat rhythm. Is it a hip hop song? Is it an R&B? But back then, if you had say Wu Tang, and then you had Bone, then you had Outkast, and you had the Fugees. They sound totally different production, totally different cadences, you know.
I think part of that, and I'm no expert, but I think part of that might be because music has become so producer driven, and where you have a studio that someone may buy out, and you have 5, 6 producers, one in each studio, recording, laying down beats, laying down tracks, and you have the star artists who may be Rihanna, maybe whoever, going, hey, come listen to this one. Oh, I feel that. Let's develop that. Go to the next producer, and so it's becomes less about the taste and talent of the individual artists and their expression. uh, Wu Tang and all the cats, everybody was writing their stuff. So it was them. It was really, you got all these different characters and individuals who have different styles that they can bring out and present. Um, so I think that the similarity you speak of, I've lamented that. I've said the same thing. And there's some wonderful producers, but when you get everything created by producers and you just plug a singer in, if you don't like my track, I'm gonna take it to another artist, You know what I'm saying? And it can get in a rut sometimes.